Exploring Color-Based Colonization Assumption by Becca Johor. So in this slideshow, I'm going to be looking at immigrants, settlers, and indigenous people, and more directly looking at the misconceptions identifying immigrants as settlers, and also looking at the alliance in between indigenous peoples and immigrants in Canada today. Beginning with relating to the coursework, the two really big weeks we're going to be looking at in my research were Are Colored People Colonizers Too? And The Personal is Political. Are Colored People Colonizers Too? Is really going to add in because we're looking at the idea of immigrants, which are typically a large base of colored individuals, not all, and their actual impact in Canada and what did they bring any colonization with them? How are they impacted today? Are they impacted by colonization, or are they assisting colonization, and what impacts we bring there? The personal is political is going to be looking at the other side of this, like how are individuals that were coming through immigration and also indigenous, what baggage are they bringing to the table? Is it similar? Is there a way for them to assist each other in relieving some of this baggage or supporting them in typical life being? So the first necessity in this project was to really kind of differentiate in my head the idea of settlers and the idea of immigrants. So by settlers, I'm referring to the original colonization of Canada, Turtle Island, and not referring to the descendants today. So their intentions they brought with them, settlers brought with them this idea of ownership and that they would kind of take charge on any situation that was there. And then therefore they brought along with them a lot of assimilation. They brought along with them residential schools and many other factors that heavily impacted Indigenous people and destroyed Indigenous culture along the way. These settlers brought with them their own legal identity that they had then imposed on Indigenous people, and technically, realistically, it wasn't a legal set of laws. They stole land, they murdered children, they brutally impacted the lives of Indigenous people that were already living and residing in the area. And technically, even though they didn't rely ownership to the lands, they had claim to the land. And today we've seen the irreparable damage that these individuals have left on Indigenous people today. Meanwhile, we have immigrants on the other side. These are individuals who came to Canada with intentions of better life. These are individuals that went through vigorous amounts of paperwork and procedures to legally arrive in Canadian soil. These are individuals that look forward to being in Canada for a better life. These are the intentions. They brought with them, again, immense legal rights to be here, and they brought with them no ideals of assimilation. If anything, they were looking to involve themselves more in Canadian culture. Immigrants are also affected by land loss and white colonial supremacy in Canada. Obviously, on Canadian soil, it's very obvious that the Caucasian class holds a superiority. And this isn't only just in politics or in economics, this is in every way of life. We see opportunities in urbanized area with supporting Caucasian individuals over colored individuals constantly. And colored individuals in this mindset groups in immigrants that appear as color, but also Indigenous people. And realistically, the majority of immigrants we see today face some types of differential, including language barriers, including systematic inequalities, feeling isolated because they've come from their potentially native lands and been shipped into a completely different livelihood with completely different ways of life and culture. It's insane to think about the other side of Indigenous culture where they have lived here their entire lives. They're the founders, protectors of the soil here. And again, we force them into a place where they're losing their language. If they do still speak their language, they also have language barriers. There's systematic inequalities holding them back from education, from water, from ways of life. And they face discrimination constantly because of the color of their skin or their ways of life, and so many other ways. both groups are being attempted to being assimilated into this culture, and it's really just sacrificing Canadian beauty, as both of these groups provide amazing qualities to bring with them. So it is very important that we see examples of these groups coming together as an alliance to stand up for different cultural backgrounds in Canada. So if we look at the Saskatoon Open Door Society is an example of Indigenous and immigrant alliances, where they take immigrants who have just moved to Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, and they give them the resources to learn about Indigenous ways of life and Indigenous culture in Canada. These are individuals that have moved to Canada to search for a better life, and here is their opportunity to do so. We see these individuals in the image looking at a picture of traditional Native art, Indigenous art, and here I find contentness in the idea that here's two very different cultures that are coming together to find strength in each other. And this is what my paper went on to discuss. Thank you very much.